Today we're going to talk about the Republicans' underhanded effort to make you think abortions are still protected and how that strategy backfired. And I'm joined by New York Times opinion writer Kara Swisher to discuss Elon Musk's latest announcement that his Twitter purchase is on hold and whether she thinks that Trump will actually come back to Twitter. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. So we spent the last week or so grappling with the reality that Roe will soon be overturned, and I want to be clear about what's coming next, because I think if there's one thing that we can all see now in retrospect, it's that this was a long time coming. And that's not to say that it was a surprise to everyone, but I mean, even with the 6-3 conservative Supreme Court, even with these state abortion bans, I honestly still doubted it would actually happen. I know I'm not alone. So now that it has happened, I think we need to be clear-eyed about what's next. Now, there are a few strategies being employed by Republicans here. We've got the one that I talked about at length last week, the Mitch McConnell strategy, demanding that we not speak about the merits of the Roe decision, but rather that, God damn it, we focus on the leak.
You need, it seems to me, excuse the lecture, to concentrate on what the news is today. Not a leaked draft, but the fact that the draft was leaked.
Yeah, some real pay no attention to the man behind the curtain vibes on that one. And of course, the rationale is beyond obvious that if Republicans can make you look at the shiny thing over there, then maybe you won't notice the fact that the GOP has stripped away one of the most popular and deeply rooted rights in history. And then you've got the Marsha Blackburn strategy. She tweeted, quote, "Overturning Roe v. Wade would not ban abortion. It would send the decision back to your state." The whole states' rights argument, which unto itself would be bad enough, right? Like, states' rights is what these Republicans use as code because they know it would be too toxic to just come out and say the things they stand for. Like, these are the people who think that same-sex marriage shouldn't be banned necessarily. It should just be up to the states to decide. And then, of course, many of those states will ban it. Like, the people who shilled for the Confederacy say that the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. Now, what they stop short of saying is that it's states' rights to allow humans to be enslaved. So anyway, that's Marsha Blackburn's argument, that don't worry, it'll just become a state issue, and then if you live in a state where it's legal, you'll be fine, and that if you want it to be legal in your state where it's not, just elect pro-choice representatives, blah, 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 as if the state legislatures weren't gerrymandered to within an inch of their lives. That whole argument, like I said, would be bad enough unto itself. But of course, there's more, because a number of Senate Republicans, including Marsha Blackburn, also sponsored legislation called the Life at Conception Act, which would ban abortion nationwide, quote, "at all stages of life, including from the moment of fertilization." In other words, she's out here saying, don't worry, it's not like this is nationwide, while simultaneously trying to ban abortion nationwide. So the idea that we should ever give these people the benefit of the doubt is absolutely asinine. Just like they swore up and down that Roe was settled law, they're now out here swearing up and down that it's just a states' rights issue. And then, mark my words, the moment they get the majority in Congress, they'll introduce a nationwide ban on abortion. Now, I had an interview last week exclusively on the audio version of my podcast with University of Michigan Law School professor Leah Littman. And you should subscribe to my podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever podcast player you use, because I always have extra interviews that I don't post onto any other platform. Anyway, I asked Leah Littman if the Supreme Court would uphold a nationwide ban on abortion, and here's what she said.
They could invoke the idea that fetuses are people under the Constitution who are entitled to constitutional protection, and therefore governments have to criminalize abortion. There are seeds of that, frankly, in this draft majority opinion that was circulated. The opinion cited in a footnote, an amicus brief by two scholars, John Finnis and Robert George, who have argued that fetuses are people who are entitled to constitutional protection. And under that theory, governments must prohibit abortion. The issue can't just be returned to the states. And then second, they could say, well, Congress doesn't have the authority under its Article 1 powers under the Constitution to regulate abortion. And it could use either of those grounds or some combination of them to invalidate a federal statute protecting the right to an abortion. And if this draft opinion reveals anything, it's that logic, reason, precedent. They're not a constraint on this conservative supermajority.
In theory, the Supreme Court could refuse to allow a law codifying Roe, but then they could allow a federal law banning abortions.
Yep, absolutely. Under that theory, the federal government would not just be permitted to ban abortions, but probably required to do so.
So when I say they won't stop with abortion, they won't stop with Plan B, they won't stop with birth control, this is why. The goalposts will never stop moving, and they will have zero shame about it. The fact is that what happens in November will directly determine whether we'll see more abortion bans, contraception bans, and so on in the states. It'll also determine whether Republicans will control the House, which, as we know, will try to refuse to certify any win in 2024 for the Democratic candidates, which will then directly impact whether a nationwide ban on abortion gets signed into law or not. So I don't think I have to explain how much is at stake in November. And just as a quick aside, I know that there are people who are going to say, we already voted, we have Democrats in charge in the House, in the Senate, in the White House, and you're right, and we are close, but we are only 2 votes short in the Senate of eliminating the filibuster. That's pretty damn good to have 96% consensus across the entire caucus in the Senate. And once we get just 2 more senators, we can eliminate the filibuster and pass a law codifying abortion protections with a simple majority. And if the Supreme Court doesn't uphold it, we should expand the court. And that is not radical. What's radical is allowing a court to undermine the will of 60 to 70% of Americans by stripping women of their reproductive freedom because it doesn't comport with their theology. So look, I know it's easy to just say, we already showed up, but just know that we are close. And the answer here is very clearly to push just a little more and we can win this, as opposed to giving up and letting the Republicans take control. Being angry that we didn't get 100% sign-on by Democrats isn't reason to give up and let the guys who will give you 0% sign-on the victory, because they will undoubtedly ban abortion, ban contraception, ban whatever they don't want the moment they take power. That's our message right now. Give us 2 more pro-choice senators and your rights will be protected. But before that, Democrats in Congress should do their part by keeping this issue top of mind. I spoke about this last week, and also Brian Beutler spoke about this in his newsletter. Schumer should be bringing a bill codifying Roe up for a vote every single month. And if and when that bill fails at the hands of Republicans, then vote on a bill protecting birth control. And then vote on a bill offering federal protections for rape victims. And then vote on a bill offering federal protections for incest victims. And then vote on a bill protecting your right to cross state lines for abortion, and on and on. And if Republicans block these bills, then people will know. But make them take these votes. Republicans voted more than 70 times to repeal Obamacare. 70 times. For something that 2/3 of Americans opposed. And yet we should stop at 1 vote to actually protect a law that 2/3 of Americans support? Come on now. Make them take these votes over and over and over. And if you miss the results of a vote in May, then you'll see them in June. And if you miss the one in June, then you'll see it in July or August or September or October. That is the point. We need to fight here. We need to get caught trying. This is what midterms are going to be about, but we have to be willing to do this all the way. To see my interview with New York Times' Kara Swisher to discuss Elon Musk's latest announcement that his Twitter purchase is on hold and whether she thinks Trump will actually come back to Twitter, click the thumbnail right here on this screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel.